What's happening, people? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to take you through the 10 books which have most impacted my life. We've got 8 which are personal development books and 2 which are real life stories. Let's get into it. First up is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. This is a book which probably changed my fundamental big picture approach to life more than anything else. And it's one of the very few life design books which actually delivers on its promise. If you feel like you're always busy but not getting anywhere, if you struggle to make progress towards your meaningful long-term goals, this is for you. It's a book that reminds us to focus on the vital few and not the trivial many. It's an answer to a lot of common 21st century problems, I think. We're overloaded with information and choices and business opportunities and adventures, and it's very difficult to work out what we actually should be doing. For me, I always loved saying yes. I'd say yes to more businesses or more trips away with friends, but I didn't actually understand how all of that was contributing to the end goal of what am I actually here for. Essentialism forces you to strip away everything which is non-essential and gets you back on track, focusing on the only things that genuinely matter. As far as I'm concerned, you should start here before reading any other personal development book. Next up, we've got The Forgotten Highlander by Alistair Urquhart. This is probably the most extreme story that I've ever read. So, a Scottish soldier is captured by the Japanese in Singapore and spends 3.5 years surviving the most brutal conditions, where almost every one of his friends die. He's part of a forced labour group who build the bridge over the River Kwai. He gets left to die in a hell ship with cannibals on board, which then gets torpedoed by a US submarine. He gets captured again, works a mere 10 miles from the Nagasaki bomb blast, and still survives it all. After all of that, he kept quiet for over 50 years and finally wrote this memoir as a call to arms to bring the Japanese to account for what they got up to during the war. It's a difficult book to read at times, but really inspiring. It's an amazing reminder of just how bad life could actually be. And when I'm stuck in traffic or annoyed that my internet's running slow or pissed that the Deliveroo driver's gone next door, it makes me reset and actually focus on just, does it matter? Think about some of the challenges that people have actually faced in life. And yeah, if I haven't got dysentery for 3.5 years solid, I reckon I'm doing all right. By the way, if you want more suggestions, I've just completed a reading list of the 100 best books that I've ever read. So if you want more awesome reads, you can pick up a copy for free. Link is on the screen somewhere and in the description below. Next up is Lying by Sam Harris. This is a 1-hour read on why you should never lie. It's hugely transformational for me over the last few years. Not because I was lying all the time or something, but just that telling the truth is actually quite difficult, especially if you're not working on it. A lot of the time it's easier to tell a lie than to tell the truth, and without a compelling reason for why you shouldn't lie, you just keep on slipping down that. So Sam's book is a really good insight into the nature of lying, why you do it, and the negative effects that it has on you and others. In my experience, telling the truth is like a superpower. You never have to remember what you said. You never have to be concerned about being found out for something because what you did always aligns with what you said you did. It really does alleviate a lot of anxiety, and it makes you a lot more proud of the person that you are, especially if you've gone through your 20s, perhaps doing some stuff that were less than honourable at times. There's no reason not to pick this book up. You can read it in a single sitting, and it might just change your life. Next up, we've got The Ape That Understood the Universe by Steve Stuart Williams. As far as I'm concerned, evolutionary psychology is the closest you're going to get at peering under the hood of your own behaviour and discovering why you do the things you do. Steve Stuart Williams writes one of the easiest and most accessible books on evolutionary psychology that I've ever found, and he answers some unbelievable questions like, why are we attracted to certain traits in the opposite sex? Or why is jealousy a thing? Are we monogamous creatures? Why do we help our family more than we help strangers? Or why do we make alliances with some people and enemies of others? As someone who doesn't like being at the mercy of my programming, becoming aware of the evolutionary impulses that are driving my behavior was super insightful and very satisfying to me. We can't always transcend our nature, but being aware of it is an important first step. If you're interested in human nature and why we are the way we are, you'll be fascinated by this. Like, it's basically just an endless barrage of jaw-dropping discoveries, and it's really easy to read. I found myself highlighting pretty much every other paragraph. Next up, we've got The Precipice by Toby Ord, which is potentially the most important book on this entire list. It's the best insight into existential risk that I've ever found. A complete breakdown of how humanity could go extinct, the relative likelihoods of each risk occurring, and proposed solutions. So from asteroids to artificial intelligence, bioweapons to nuclear war, this is a one-stop shop for understanding the risks that our civilization faces and what we can do about it. The Precipice really did shake my worldview quite fundamentally and reminded me that as a steward of the globe right now, I do have a duty to all of the future generations that are going to come to leave this a better world than I found it. It also gave me a sense of awe and dread, kind of like when you look up at the night sky. It makes you feel insignificant in a beautiful way, and it stretches that out across an entire book. This, for some people that I've told to read it, has changed their life. And it makes me very happy that I genuinely think those people are going to work very, very hard in a way that's going to make everybody else's existence improved. The Precipice is a very easy read. It's super accessible, and it's even easier to listen to, actually, because Toby's got this beautiful Australian accent. It makes a nice change from reading personal development all the time. You can improve the texture of your own worldview without constantly looking for a hack that directly relates to you. This is the biggest picture that you can get, and yet it's changed the way that I go about my day pretty much all the time. Next up, we've got Lost Connections by Johann Hari. This is a fantastic dive into depression's causes. Almost everyone is going to suffer with some form of depression during their adult lives, so educating yourself on it makes a lot of sense. Johann has trawled the entire globe speaking to some of the world's most prominent experts and drawing on examples from history, anthropology, politics, and a lot more to elaborate his points. For a long time, depression was judged as an imbalance of chemicals in the brain, and that the environmental impact was actually very small. Johann turns this on its head and reminds us that unmet needs, not unrequired chemicals, are what might be causing depression. It puts you back in control. And this was what I found very liberating about it, that it permitted me to do what I always knew was right, that I have control over my mood on a day-to-day basis, and that there are certain pathways that I need to make sure I'm fulfilling before I can say I have a problem with my brain. It's like, look, are you getting up at the right time each day? Are you eating, sleeping, walking? Do you have friends that care about you? Do you have a job that you're committed to? Do you have a local community that you feel a part of? If you don't have any of these things, what are you doing talking about the way that your brain feels? Like, your environment is what happens first, and then you move on after that. I would say this is another book that you can audible. Johann has a lovely British accent, and there's some long stories that are probably quite good to visualize. If you want something that you need to listen to in the car or that you can chill out to on an evening time, this is a good shout. Next up, we've got The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. This is another short and brilliant read. It breaks down the challenges of motivation and struggles as a creative. It teaches you how to overcome procrastination and find your creativity and properly apply yourself to your craft. A lot of people read this book because it helps them to get past procrastination and overcome creative hurdles. But I read it and fell in love with one chapter right in the middle called Turning Pro. It reminds us that we need to treat the pursuit that we are going after in our lives seriously, that we need to treat it like a professional and not an amateur, that we need to lean in to the discomfort that we have because that's what a professional does. It made me change the entire process that I had and my approach to the podcast and this YouTube channel because I thought, well, I want to be really, really good at this. So what would a professional do? In fact, I think that so many other people enjoyed this chapter that Stephen went on to write an entire second book called Turning Pro about the exact same topic. If you're in a rut with life and you need a creative kick up the arse, this is for you. Half of it feels like a motivational David Goggins monologue, and then the other half feels like a spiritual book about the esoteric world of higher meaning. You have no reason not to commit a couple of hours to reading this. Next up, we've got Endurance by Alfred Lansing. This is the best retelling of Sir Ernest Shackleton's voyage to the Antarctic that I've ever found. It is a terrifying joy to read. So in 1914, Shackleton and his team, they tried to cross the Antarctic, and pretty much everything that could go wrong does go wrong. They face insane odds in the harshest conditions on the planet after becoming stranded and having to survive for more than 2 years. The story tracks the entire narrative in brutal detail, which makes for a powerful and inspiring story. For me, I connected with it because it reminded me just how far human potential can go, that when I'm facing discomfort, where I think my limit is probably not even halfway. There is so much headroom above that. And hearing this story from an analog age, 1914, they left just after the First World War was declared. And when you find out about stories like Sir Ernest Shackleton and the entire team of guys, including a stowaway, overcoming the odds, it really inspires you to go out there and to take on the challenges of life with a new set of eyes. Next up, we've got Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. As far as I can see, the world is split into two camps. The first one are people who do understand the impact of sleep on your health and your performance, and the second one are the people that don't. I'm a club promoter, and for a long time, I've worked until 3 or 4 a.m. multiple nights per week. So for me, sleep was just the annoying thing that I did in between finishing work and then getting up to go back to work again. And this book is single-handedly responsible for red-pilling me on how much my health and my performance was suffering because I wasn't prioritizing sleep. I think this is the only book that you need on sleep, in my opinion. And if you don't understand the effects on your health and your longevity, then dedicate some time to it here. You find out tips for how to improve and optimize your sleep, insights into the function of why we do it for the human body, and a lot more. Again, this is probably one that you can afford to Audible. You don't need to necessarily take away any of the statistics. You just need to overall adopt the mindset. Sleep is really, really important. And the more that I do it, the better my performance will be. Finally, we've got Models by Mark Manson. This is probably the only book that you need as a man to become effective at dating. So Manson went on to superstardom after this, but the book is still a classic. It breaks down the root behaviors that cause female attraction, and it gives actionable and ethical advice that most guys need to be successful at dating. Like, how can you overcome nervousness? Or how do you keep conversations with women engaging and interesting? How do you find a girl who you're genuinely attracted to? The reason that I really like this book is because previously a lot of the dating advice I'd got, especially for men, was a bit icky. It felt quite predatory in a way, and it was all about, you've got to neg the beater and then twist the lemon and tell her this and whatever. I wasn't into that. I wanted to just understand the fundamental principles and then allow my personality to come through. Mark, I spoke to him on the podcast not long ago, and he said that this is exactly right. The purpose isn't to turn you into some different sort of a person that can sleep with a girl and then that doesn't know what to say to her the next day. It's to become the sort of man that is attractive to women. Again, another book that you can definitely afford to get on Audible. You don't need to be writing down too many notes. Just understand the fundamentals of how attraction works and then go out there and find your chick. Let me know which of these books you agree with and which ones I've missed off in the comments below. And don't forget that if you want to get my full reading list with 100 books that you need to read before you die, you can get a copy for free by pressing right here. And don't forget to subscribe. It makes me very happy indeed. Peace.